been acting all my life since I was a little child, so I think the first part I remember playing was in The Littlest Angel when I was about 7 years old. And I was always trying to get the neighborhood kids to be in a play, and we put on plays in my garage. And so I was really interested in performance and was acting in all the theater departments in the high schools that I went to, and then majored in theater in college. So it's been a lifelong pursuit on one level. And then I moved to Los Angeles in the early 70s and realized that there was this whole art form I really didn't know anything about, which was film. I mean, I was a big film fan at that point, but I didn't know how movies were made. It was all magic to me. So I went down to USC and auditioned for some student films, and that's where I met Tommy Wallace and John Carpenter.
He's the one they want. Why don't we give him to them? Well, don't give me that civilized look.
John wanted to make a Western. I know that he was crazy about John Ford and Howard Hawks, and and he really wanted to make a Western. But at the time, in the 70s, it was really difficult to get those kind of films made. And it was suggested that he make Assault on Precinct 13, which I think the original title was The Anderson Alamo. He wanted to make a big picture. He wanted to emulate those guys, and he wanted Panavision, and he wanted that big sort of Monument Valley look transposed to, the urban ghetto of Los Angeles. The whole concept was really very, very palatable, very alive. And we're all working in that kind of, okay, here's where we are in LA, and it's 1976 or whenever, but can we make it look like the Wild West? I think on that level, that film really works. And so anyway, when I met John through Tommy, because I'd made Tommy Wallace's student film, and they were good friends from childhood. And I don't know how John wound up ready to work on that picture, but he needed a cast, and I was there, and I wanted to work on it. And so he, I was somebody that he knew. I don't know how many actresses he actually knew.
Hello, Julie.
Hello.
I was really, really nervous. I'd never made a movie before. A feature film, a 35 millimeter feature film. I'd never acted in a movie like that, and it was a movie that was going to get me into the union. It was a really important step for me as an actress, and I was really scared. And so I sort of tried to take care of my nerves by working too hard as a wardrobe mistress, if that makes sense. I was really comfortable being the wardrobe mistress. I had a lot of experience doing that, and so I had to be nudged into performing. But I eventually worked it out. I was also the set dresser on that picture.
Well, somebody could have heard that. I really think they're gone. I mean, take a look.
Virtually no rehearsal, in terms of developing the character. It was just sort of, here it is, let's do it. And I wasn't used to that. I think that's one of the reasons why I was so nervous, was that, coming from the theater, I relied on the rehearsal process to cultivate my character and develop my character. I don't think Julie is a really, deeply evolved character. Simply reflective of the times that we were living in at that time. and think about what that was in the 1970s. It was the demise of the inner city as we knew it, a major transition going on. It was all about white flight, and I think this film is exploiting the fears of the white culture and its desire to surround itself, put barriers between itself and the perceived other, right? And the marginalization of a culture that they felt was encroaching. I remember being very excited and being very proud of the film. Not really sure about my performance in it, not thinking that it was that great.
See? If you'll just look outside, you'll see they're gone.
As a film, you know, given what we had to work with, you know, and the time allowed and the money and, you know, I mean, it was amazing how complete it seemed. But I think it was that Panavision vision was so successful, and all of that Western ambiance was really cooking. I could feel that, I could sense that. And all the effects that we had struggled so hard to like make, you know, I mean, all of that worked, all that stuff. And so I was very proud of it. It wasn't that it was such a big hit in the United States, because it wasn't. It was really in England where I think it was appreciated first. And it was that kind of buzz that was going on over there that started the ball rolling for Halloween. I think John was, or Deborah Hill was thinking that it was a part that I could play, that Annie was a part that I could play, yeah. And they were thinking along the lines of this, you know, making another movie and just sort of repeating as much as they could the whole experience of Assault on Precinct 13. For me, it wasn't my taste, you know. It certainly wasn't the kind of movie that I would go out to see. I'd been too frightened as a child. I went to see a horror movie and you know, I had nightmares and left the theater screaming, and my parents said, okay, that's enough of that. It was a little bit bigger of a budget than Assault on Precinct 13, and a little bit more time to shoot, a lot more problems, a lot more opportunities. It was a great collaborative effort, and I really had a great time on it. The fog came along right after Halloween, and it was exciting because it was going to be shot on location outside of Los Angeles. And so I was really glad to have a part in it. Part of that was because I was working with Janet Leigh, and she really helped me to relax, and she really taught me a lot, you know. And even though there wasn't a lot of rehearsal time, she made that time count, and she just was so generous. So I had fun working with her. Halloween 3, that was the last movie that I made, but I had a very, you know, minor part in that film. I was hardly on the set at all. I was pregnant, you know, I was nauseous all the time. I wasn't really feeling that good. So I really just didn't have time, in my view, to make both being a mom and being an actress work. After a certain point, when my kids were a little bit older, then I thought about going back into acting, and was in several really interesting plays. But I began to realize at that point that I was a lot more interested in the visual aspects, the design aspects, and the directing aspects than I was in acting. And so I was following that voice, and that's really how I became a sculptor. And I was really much more interested in expressing myself visually. I really do enjoy going to these conventions. I don't go very often, and maybe that's why I do enjoy them. I really like the enthusiasm, and people are so gracious. They really are, and friendly, and I'm always amused and curious about what they're into, and so it's fun for me. I think at one point I had forgotten that I'd written that chapter, and the whole sort of rise of the internet and the genre and the conventions sort of reminded me, oh yeah, I had this whole other life. And so I just sort of woven those old threads in a new way into what I'm doing now. And it's really quite interesting for me now as a teacher of theater to have that experience in my back pocket and to be able to share that with my students and, encourage them.